This is a bit of an off-the-cuff idea I had while I was trying to go to sleep. I've gotten this idea regarding arguing why racism is not feasible in a real scientific basis randomly, and I found it interesting to tackle. I find the use of a feel-good, be nice to them message because it's mean to be more racist than anyone seems to realize. I'll explain at the end. The idea that one race is superior to another is bizarre. The only justification I have been able to find that has a potential to be argued against pragmatically and efficiently is a point of view which holds that black people resemble ape-like ancestors, comparing their anatomy to modern-day apes. Yet that argument can be contested by the exact same concepts used to make it. Other supposed proofs for racism include ethical or historical positions, but they can be argued by saying not all blank was blank, and so sweeping remarks would be wrong by definition, no matter who makes them. It should be noted that it seems that people hold scientists, including Darwin, as horrible racists themselves. I find that Darwin being considered a racist is like considering the sun to be dark, complete lies about a person's character. Science, and in effect evolution, is not racist. Racists are racist, and will use any metric to justify their racism, and ignore evidence that contradicts their point of view. I hold that these people cannot be considered scientists in the literal sense of the word and the essence of the study, but that is a philosophical standpoint. Moving on from that, considering appearances to be signifiers of advancement in mental and emotional fortitude is confusing. That is wrong from an evolutionary point of view. The study used to supposedly prove their point. No animal currently alive is more evolved than any other. That is a basic misunderstanding of what evolution is, and thinking that more evolved means anything from a scientific standpoint shows ignorance. Evolution, put simply, is the selection of preferable phenotypical elements that improves an organism's chance of survival. That is an incomplete definition, but it will suffice to what the point of this video is. Modern day apes, for example, have a common ancestor with humans, going back 12 to 16 million years ago, which tells us that modern day apes and humans both have had the same amount of time to evolve and become what they are today. Therefore, comparing a black person to an ape and calling him less evolved because of it is retarded. Apes are, for the sake of the argument, as evolved as we are, because we came from the same place and have existed for the same amount of time. For the untrained eye, an ape resembles a common ancestor, but the modern day apes are alive and well today. Thus, that would mean that an ape is just as evolved as a modern white man, a modern black man, a modern worm, a modern tree, and a modern single-celled organism. Now, some might argue that some animals haven't evolved for a while, such as crocodiles and alligators, but by making that point, although it is untrue, you have just disproved your whole hypothesis, which states that evolution shows improvement. Here it seems that evolution was not necessary. Instead, mutations probably created abominations that ended up dying out due to their insufficiency. Thus, evolution as a signifier is now out of the window. There's also another issue here. What is the standpoint that makes a white person anywhere closer to the ideal than the next white person? That diagram makes it seem that a white person is closer to the ideal than a black person is, and thus that every black person will end up in a few thousand years resembling the white person as they evolve. That is retarded, because by definition it means that the white person himself is not evolved yet, and will keep on improving towards an unknown ideal that is far from ever being reached. And thus white people have made themselves inadequate by their own metrics. White people are not done evolving. Evolution is a never-ending cycle that always has a way to change things. It's easy to point at a random element that makes people different and call that one better than the other, but trying to add a scientific basis to it shows how incomplete it is. Now this point goes against the argument that crocodiles are fully evolved, but that position considers that crocodiles are complete in their evolution, which they are not. Modern-day crocodiles are different than their common ancestors, although they are pretty close. Now for the most esoteric point. There is very little that would define what the difference between organisms really are. Viewing a bacteria as different from a wolf, as different from a fish, as different from a human, and as different from a worm is incomplete. We view organisms as separate because they are obviously differing in their appearances. But if you want to take the scientific route of considering organisms from their evolutionary position, you would need to concede that every organism is the same, with different tools at their disposal. As a survival machine, you are nothing more than the genes that built you. A fucking robot that is used to fuck other fucking robots in order to make more fucking robots. Anything you currently possess is only there because your genes deemed it useful for your survival. And yes, that includes your ability to take in information and spout it. That is not to say that genes have made this decision. On the contrary, they are quite dumb, as we have been able to discover. Genes create everything by combination and shuffling, where the more efficient shuffles continue while the less efficient shuffles don't. That could mean something as small as eye color in a few generations, but taken over a large enough span of time and speciation, any number of differences are possible. Thus, splitting yourself and other organisms into groups is by definition facetious, since the only real difference between two things is that you are two different things that are taking space with different genes that have the same goal: survive. With all that being said, the best we can do is split living things into species, which refers to a population of organisms that are capable of multiplying through sexual intercourse. I'd hope that the last paragraph I just vomited can show you how this definition is less than satisfying to me, but that is the best we can do for now, and is a good rule of thumb considering that mating is a big reason why populations get created. It makes splitting humans into races even more of a frustrating issue from my view, because we're splitting hairs at this point, but it is not for me to decide what people categorize humans as. And so we continue. Relating that to the race issues, it can be seen why different races have different elements. White skin and soft hair with low levels of melanin allows the absorption of sunlight better. Black skin and afros allow for the reduction of the sun's never-ending barrage's effect on the human body. Those are the two extremes, and you can fill in the blank for the rest of the skin tones and hair types. Taking a naked white man and placing them in the center of Africa would lead to the white man probably dying of heat stroke or skin cancer way before a black man. And placing a naked black man in the freezing sunless Europe would lead to a big decline in necessary vitamin D and sticking out like a sore thumb when attempting to hunt in a snowy environment. Today it doesn't matter anymore because we have successfully made nature our bitch, but what we look like isn't determined by what we make. Well, for the most part. Thus, a person's race is dictated by their ancestors' needs to survive in a harsh and unforgiving world, and calling one better than the other because one got to the other first is retarded, especially considering what was said before. Different geographic locations require different tools, and those different tools allow us to survive much longer than the organisms missing those tools or focusing on the wrong ones. Those tools have become arbitrary with how child-proof our world has become because of our proficiency in amending the world we live in, and instead of making it seem like our appearance now has any significance, we should realize that any tools that allowed us to survive much longer in harsh conditions can now be forgotten as signifiers of our history. Vestigial organs, if you like, made vestigial by us, the now masters of our world by our own hand. Why do we still have dark skin, light skin, hands, feet, lungs, nails, hair, a dick or a vagina? It's because we don't have the need to change those tools. Our biology makes us like these tools, and we don't want to be rid of them, as any organism would agree with that. A human born with 3 fingers instead of 5 might have been better suited to survive in some random buttfuck nowhere in the jungle. But no one looks at a 3-fingered person and picks them as an ideal, because an overwhelming majority want 5. No more, no less. Thus, having no natural pressures, which used to be crushing to us and our fellow survival machines to force us into sink or swim scenarios, will lead us to never change, in order to suit our natural environment. Instead, these changes, which are inevitable, will come from our own hand, a self-fulfilling prophecy, where never wanting to change will lead to whatever the fuck the next human would look and act like. Does that mean that any creature that exists in perpetual world of difficulty and harshness due to their inability to make the world their bitch is now less evolved than we are? No. Different creatures use different tools to exist, and the fact that they have existed for as long as we have shows us that they are more than successful in the worlds that they need to tackle. A white man never needed to exist in Africa until we made the world ours, and by that definition, a worm that would drown in the ocean is not inferior, because they have no need to exist in the ocean. We want to go to the ocean, we want to fly, and we have only been able to achieve that after we contested the world and won. That is not a signifier of superiority. It's just another survival tactic that our genes had developed in order to make sure we have the need to do these things. Our wants are not our own, they are the effects of random shuffling. And now we exist in this world where that shuffling made us believe we are better than others. Genes didn't write in literal text. Instead, these are the unintended effects of biology, and with that comes every human facet we see: cruelty, evil, benevolence, charity, murder, self defense, nurture, and abandonment are all effects of life. We study these constituents through psychology, but just like math, it is not a fault of your own to consider it an omnipresent field. Psychology and math were created to describe us and the universe to ourselves, not the other way around, descriptive instead of prescriptive. And thus, believing that humans have any more of a superiority towards each other or other living beings using these fields is a failure of these subjects having become monoliths to our understanding of the universe. Said simply, psychology wasn't there. We made it, and improved it to fit our everyday lives, and make it easier to describe ourselves. It is not a field that has anywhere near the achievement of mathematics, but that too exists because we have agreed on basic realities that we see everywhere. Without us, math wouldn't need to exist, neither would language, but that too has become a prescriptive by some cultures. We did it, boys. Racism is no more. I hope that I have shown that you can disprove any form of racism without needing to resort to the please don't be mean argument. It doesn't stand, as in it is incredibly racist. Why, you ask? Well, let's take disabilities, for example. A disabled person lacks the abilities of an able-bodied person by default. That is an objective metric, and thus, making fun of a disabled person for their disabilities is mean-spirited because they can't control it and would rather not have it. Although a joke could be funny if done well.
You know when you're at work and fucking Sam rolls up? It's always Sam, right?
With that said, a black person considered a victim of an insult for their race means that their race is actually thought of as a negative, but something to be tolerated. That is racism. Because thinking that considering a black person's skin tone as bad means that being black is bad, according to the people who say please don't be mean. An infinitely better argument would be, so? Because that would show that being black is irrespective of a person's quality. Not liking a black person for being black is like going to a grey blob and calling it a grey blob. You stated a fact. Please continue on why that it's a contentious issue. And any stereotyping made to further the point would lead to nowhere, because you can just as easily say, not all. So please, don't think calling black people black in a mean-spirited way as bad, because that means you share the opinion of these racists and that being black is a negative to not be mentioned. Well, that was long. Well, not really, it's much shorter than the last one. My throat is dry now, though. I'm thinking of maybe, like I thought about it, it might be a good idea to continue this as a series maybe, if it's anywhere near successful. Because I feel like you could disprove many different issues without calling it, oh, well, it's mean, please don't do that. Like gay, for example. Thinking of gay people as a negative and saying that that's mean and you should tolerate it because people are like this and blah blah. That is stupid. You can easily prove that being gay is completely normal and part of nature. So I don't know, I might continue that. If anybody's fucking listening, no one is. But if anybody's listening, if you have any topics that are considered a negative in when it comes to people, and people say that, oh, we don't want to use science to disprove it, please let me know, because I really want to tackle these issues and figure out a way to keep science and just basic logic in stride to solve these situations. Because like the gay thing, there's a song by this guy, I forgot his name, he's a gay singer, but he said something about there is no science here in one of the songs, where there's like a black, there's like a, yeah, there is like a black stripper dancing, all male strip club thing. And I was thinking, dude, science is on your side. Why are you singing that? So that is another thing I have in my mind. I'll see if I'll get into that. But if you have any other ideas and you give a shit, tell me about them. That'd be interesting. All right, thanks for watching.